An all-weather Chinese bridge on the Pangong Tso. A 30-meter wide national highway in the middle of nowhere. A military village being set up close to the line of actual control in Ladakh. India Today gets you the latest satellite images from close to the line of actual control in eastern Ladakh. Dragons, disengagement, deceit, exposed. That's our top focus on India First. Hello and welcome to an India First special broadcast. I'm Gaurav Sawant. During the course of the next half hour, we get you an India Today exclusive report. On the broadcast, we will get you the latest satellite images from the line of actual control in eastern Ladakh and show you the fast-paced Chinese infrastructure development. What does this mean? What does this mean for the multiple rounds of talks that India and China have had? Were these just an excuse for China to rapidly build infrastructure on the Pangong Tso Lake and very close to it? India Today's Ankit Kumar with this exclusive report. "30-meter wide Blacktop Road, an all-weather bridge on the Pangong Tso, a new observation and electronic intelligence gathering tower, heavy earth movers on the road, prefabricated huts for Chinese troops." Satellite images accessed exclusively by India Today expose the Chinese agenda in Ladakh. Multiple rounds of core commander level talks for disengagement from multiple friction points in Ladakh are now being used by China to strengthen its deployment along the 800+ kilometer long LAC in eastern Ladakh. China's fast-paced infrastructure development along the Pangong Tso has been exposed by India Today through these satellite images. Take for example the first satellite picture of a bridge under construction on the Pangong Lake. This all-weather bridge is being constructed not far from India's claim line in Ladakh. The bridge gives a major advantage to China, reducing the travel time from north end to south end of the lake. On the August 29 and 30 in 2020, India had surprised China by quid pro quo operations on the south side of Pangong Tso, taking control of the Kailash Heights. Chinese generals were taken aback. This construction now is China's effort to ensure it's not surprised next time and can quickly move men and material from one bank to the other of the lake.
The rapid infra push across Pangong Lake is designed to serve one purpose only, that is to negate a repeat of August 2020-like counter-operation by the Indian Armed Forces.
Look at this second image of the all-weather Blacktop Road being constructed on either side of Pangong Tso. The Blacktop Road will enable quick movement of men and material.
Chinese policies are always far-sighted. It makes a plan and then does full preparation before the plan is implemented. India has a long border dispute with China. Despite best efforts by India, China has not agreed to convert that line of actual control into an international border.
Image number 3 shows a tower having been constructed close to the LAC. There are a number of new towers that are coming up, showing rapid pace of infrastructure being set up, including observation posts, electronic intelligence gathering towers, and even surveillance posts.
हमारा चाइना से क्लैश ही इस बात पर हुआ है कि वो यूनिलैटरली अपने बॉर्डर एरियाज और जो अनडिमार्केटेड बॉर्डर जो एरियाज हैं हमारे LAC के, वहां पे इतना यूनिलैटरल तरीके से इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डेवलपमेंट नहीं कर सकते। ये कॉन्फिडेंस बिल्डिंग मेजर्स के खिलाफ है, लेकिन उसके बावजूद वो ऐसा कर रहे हैं।
There is, however, a gap in the bridge. It is yet to be completed and remains so for the past several weeks. This rapid pace of infrastructure development is not only in Ladakh but also in Arunachal Pradesh, where China is building dual-use villages along the LAC. This crowdsourced video shows heavy earth-moving equipment being used by the Chinese army close to the LAC in Arunachal Pradesh. Ankit Kumar in Delhi for India Today. These satellite images are the latest, taken on the 28th of August. Joining me to help us make sense of these images and the implications of Chinese actions, Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma. He knows every inch of this territory. He commanded the Ladakh Corps in Leh. Also with me is Ambassador Vijay Nambiar, India's former ambassador to China. He reads the Chinese mind very effectively. And of course, my colleague Ankit Kumar, who broke this story and got us these satellite images. Let's take these images one by one. Let's begin with this big picture. Let's now show you the big picture here. Chinese infrastructure development, especially around the Pangong. And let's begin with this. At the narrowest point at Pangong, there is a bridge that's coming up. And this is very fast, Ankit. The pace of making this bridge.
The pace is very fast. It has been very fast. Remember, this bridge has been completed in 2 steps. First started last year September, got completed earlier this year in January. But then another parallel structure just adjacent to the first bridge started to surface up in satellite imagery. Now what's more interesting is that they have left 15-meter wide gap towards the southern end of the bridge. We don't know what the actual purpose of this gap is, but we believe that this gap could be used to, bypass either the construction material or assault or patrol boats.
General, what do you make of this bridge? North bank and south bank of Pangong Tso, they've been able to link up. Is this to negate India's advantage during the QPQ operations?
So that apart, we've been talking about the G695 being built from Mazar, and it goes down along the line of actual control, and then it crosses Pangong Tso and goes right up to Arunachal Pradesh. So that road being built is a very major road. This seemingly is a part of that same road construction which will inevitably come up in times to come. And the bridge is, of course, as you said, narrowest part. It comes across from Pangong Tso, which is our part, which is the Finger 4 and Finger 8, which we were talking about.
Yes.
Now, the Chinese have a large number of new boats. Those boats came in there. We had those boats from Florida earlier. So the Chinese boats, naturally, when they have to go for repair or maintenance or things like that, they have to go dock to Rutog. The lake finishes at Rutog, which is on the G219.
Yes.
So naturally, they have to leave a place on the bridge to pass through it. What I think most important is that it implies that they have got a long-term vision into this area. And if you see the construction and you see the habitat being built, well, this is going to be a clear indication that there is no de-escalation possible.
There is no de-escalation possible is what the General says, Ambassador. Is that also your appreciation? These 16 rounds of talks at the level of the Corps Commander, is China just trying to buy time so that it not only builds, we should realize it's there perhaps for a very long time to come, if not forever?
Clearly, Gaurav, they are here for the long haul, and all their preparations point out to that. In fact, the latest actions seem to, in a sense, try to, from their perception, try to neutralize as far as possible the kind of advantage which we had gained when we took over control of Helmet Top and Blacktop in the southern part. Now, they maybe, I don't know whether they think that they will not, after having withdrawn from there, they don't want to get us to get a similar advantage in the future. But clearly our boys will probably look for something else, and I'm sure they're up to giving them one or two surprises in the future, because I think we seem to be quite taking very close, we have a close calculation of what they are doing. Now let me get back to, in terms of the diplomatic response, I want to recall what our External Affairs Minister said, and that in a sense is a response to these kind of things. Mr. Jaishankar very clearly at the Asia Society Policy Institute talk on Monday said two things. One is that the state of the border will determine the state of relations. He's made it quite clear that we will not go by what the Chinese have been trying to say, that separate the situation on the border from the overall relationship. And that point has been made clear, and clearly he's talked about the three mutuals, that is the mutual respect, mutual interest and mutual sensitivity. The other point which he had made is the larger point about the Asian century, and he talked about the Asian century not being possible if India and China were to work at cross purposes. This has to be seen in the context of, on the one hand, the strengthening determination, or the strengthened determination which China is trying to show to the world in the immediate, in the preparations for the 20th Congress. It is Party Congress, and I think it is a kind of show which they are making at this stage, and I think it also has larger implications for the India-China relationship. And I think
and that's China. You know, we've made it very clear to China that the state of relationship depends on the state of the border. But does China actually care, or is China trying to give India fait accompli once again? I want to look at the second picture, and the second picture actually gives us more clarity on the Chinese mind deployment and actions. Now again, like we said, 28th of August 2022, these pictures were taken, and look at the road construction that is happening all along, and a blacktop road. Now this road construction, these earth movers, big trucks that are coming, what does this indicate?
If you go back, turn the calendar back few weeks back, these constructions, they were not there. On the southern bank, China did not have the advantage of having these wide roads. Now, if you see these images, you can see now blacktop roads. These are not blacktop. The next images will show you the blacktopping of roads. This is the initial process of the road construction. These are earth-moving vehicles. Now, in few weeks and months to come, you will have 30-meter wide roads connecting the southern bank.
Let's come to the next slide, and that next slide actually shows us the blacktop road. Now, this is the 30-meter wide road that is being constructed in this area, and what you also have here are earth movers and some other construction material. General blacktop roads. We also have blacktop roads all the way up to Daulat Beg Oldie. But China clearly is not doing anything which is a temporary measure. This is for the long haul.
So when they say that they wanted to construct within 15 kilometers of the line of actual control a G-type road, not a S-type road, a G-type road, which is a national highway for them. So they actually have already announced that these roads will be so wide and so in firmament, they will be for long haul. So actually, why does it require a G-type road in an area where there is no habitation for him, is not supplying his people? It can only be an escalatory measure. It is only a message being conveyed across to us that he means business.
Do not take this lightly. This is a big message that China is sending to India. What's that message? What is the escalation in your view?
So, see, the border, he has willy-nilly created a kind of a buffer or a kind of distance between our troops and his troops.
Okay.
So there is and then of course those villages. If you see some of these photographs of the villages, sometime, the villages are very nicely made. I saw one in Chepsi of Chuma. It's a beautiful village being constructed close to the border, and these visuals are around. So actually he's changing the character of the entire border.
Okay.
And by creating the villages, putting people out there, creating such kind of infrastructure, meaning the reason, and of course also habitat. See, there is some news item said he had a habitat of about 20,000 earlier. In this area, he's constructed a habitat over 1 lakh people to stay there, which actually means is that people who are units who came out from Hotan or Xinjiang are now here to stay forever.
Units that came for an exercise, Ambassador Nambiar, are here to stay. He's changed the LAC. He's changing pattern, demographic pattern. We may continue to say that state of relationship depends on state of border, but he's given us a fait accompli, hasn't he?
Yes, he has. But the point is, we cannot afford to accept this. We have to tell them that this is not, we are going to actually confront the situation and cope with it without giving way. You must show a sense of determination to address this problem, and both in terms of the military preparations to cope with the situation, as well as the larger, in terms of mobilizing the population, etc. There are major responsibilities which we will have to bear. There's no point. You can't ignore that fact. But on the diplomatic level, I think we have to take the position that we are taking note of all this, and this is going to be a question which we will confront eye to eye. There's no other way we can do it.
Okay. So, should India's response, Ambassador Nambiar, also not be that if the relationship is not normal, trade perhaps should go down? But it is being argued that trade is at an all-time high, and we also give China contract for wheels of rakes. Why would we do that, and why should we do that in case he's building permanent infrastructure at the line of actual control, sir?
Now, this is exactly the point which the External Affairs Minister is saying, that you cannot have business as usual. And I think we will, obviously there are certain constraints which are preventing us from actually tamping down entirely the state of our trade relations. Obviously that would, in fact, people are trying to, in a sense, assess how that will impact the Indian economy, and that, in fact, is a reflection of how we have actually proceeded over the last decade, in fact. So it will take time, but clearly we have sent the message that this will not be without consequences.
Okay. Yeah. From our side, it's the writing on the wall, General, but is China reading that writing on the wall?
Yeah, so I take a step back to say, you know, the trade that we have. For example, we buy photovoltaic cells, which is used for solar industry. Now, it all comes from China. The supply chains are so intertwined in the world that you just cannot get out of this kind of second largest economy of the world. So they have tied it in this manner that it can't be done. Now, how do we react as an issue? You know, very important issue. Now, the point is that if we overreact to the issue, then we are actually bringing our own troops and formations under some kind of a pressure. So we have to measure the response. Okay. We can't say put 1 lakh troops across there just because he's bringing infrastructure. That's not necessary. We'll have to plan in a very deep thought and manner to say how do we do a thing like this, especially now that he's constructed a kind of belt of control, belt of actual control instead of a line of actual control, because it's got and if he tries the same things across to Uttarakhand-Tibet border or in the Sikkim or Arunachal Pradesh, we must deny him what he's done here. Okay. That should not be permitted to be done in anywhere else.
But are we in a position to do so? And you know, I want to go through the last set of pictures that India Today has exclusively accessed as part of this. So one, you're looking at this bridge, you're looking at the gap on this bridge, and explain this gap. Is this to be filled at a later date, or is this to be kept for movement of boats? And I believe India has also acquired some new boats to operate in these waters.
That's the big question, Gaurav. We don't know what the actual purpose of the PLA is, but considering the speed of construction of this bridge, we can conclusively say that this gap has been left on purpose, because it has been weeks since China had completed this part of the construction, and by this time this should have been completed. Now there could be two purposes. A, as you mentioned, passage of assault boats, patrol boats. B, it could also be the final stages of construction, because they would like construction boats to come across and maybe do service work from the other side. Okay. So that might also play an angle. One important point, Gaurav, last year when this engagement happened, all the Chinese infrastructure moved back to Rutog, right? And then additional infrastructure came. Additional, materials, military, we saw a huge number of huts. Before that August 29-30 incident, where Indian Army literally surprised the Chinese by taking the control of strategic heights, this lake, this distance played a huge role.
True.
It took 12 hours for the Chinese to just surpass this, bypass this body of water and then reach those points. Now that advantage is gone under the guise of disengagement.
Okay, so disengagement was actually a trick played by China. We moved back. We respected the gaps. We moved back. He may have moved back, but he's actually making sure he comes back faster.
So his infrastructure is a threatening move, and we accept it and we must accept it in that form. However, if see, we are also prepared. Naturally, we moved back from Kailash range, but that doesn't mean we are not kind of dominating it in some form or the other. It's not that we have just washed our hands off of those areas. So that is there. He, of course, as rightly pointed out, instead of going across the entire Pangong Tso and coming back to the south, Chuti Changla and other areas, he is now able to cross through the bridge. It gives him a little advantage of time. But, how does it matter? In war, none of these bridges will stand.
The first thing to go would be this bridge.
Yeah, so similarly our bridges also, he will also try. So we all understand it that these are peacetime bridges for peacetime movement of things.
And Ambassador Nambiar, anyway, China doesn't really want to fight a war. It just wants to intimidate the adversary. I was recently in Taiwan, and the assessment in Taiwan also is China is a bully. It doesn't want to fight. It's scared to fight.
No, well, I don't know whether it's scared to fight. It doesn't have the experience as much as probably our own boys have. But at the same time, one shouldn't assume that they are scared to fight. They do have overwhelming power. They do have overwhelming sort of assets. But they are using it psychologically. There's no question that they are doing that.
Okay, so, maybe not scared to fight, but scared to lose lives is the assessment even in Taiwan. When I spoke to some of their officers, which incidentally was also your assessment and the assessment of the Indian Army, that China doesn't want to lose lives because that means consequences for the military leadership and for Xi Jinping there.
So we fall back to history, 50-53, the war in Korea, 62 war with us, Vietnam war, nowhere they have announced how many casualties that they had. We make clear announcements as to what are casualties. So they may have a cemetery next to, when you cross over to Vietnam border, but their cemetery is unkept. So the fact of the matter is that they do not announce their casualties because of a social contract that the CCP has with the public. They don't want to rile the public, and they don't want to put the CCP and the PLA into a negative light.
Then so perhaps if they play mind games with us, we should play mind games with them. If they lose lives, that should be made public, the kind of lives that China loses in these areas. And Taiwan is very clear, at least that was what we were able to learn, that Taiwan plays the same information warfare game that China plays. Don't lose the fight in the mind. Our aim to show you these images, with these latest satellite images, was to make this nation aware what China's up to along the line of actual control, and not just in Ladakh, but Ladakh's one part of it, the middle sector, Sikkim, and also the eastern sector in Arunachal Pradesh. We will continue to track this story very, very closely. Ambassador Nambiar, General Sharma and Ankit for joining me on this India First special.